So, Detroit Pistons season preview. Last year, they finished with a 20-52 record, so they weren't great. They were the worst team in the East, but maybe interestingly, they were the 16th best defensive team in the NBA. So, that's not something you see every day. One of the worst teams in the league being actually decent on one side of the ball. So maybe that's something to build on for them. This offseason, they got the first overall pick in the NBA draft, which, when you get the first overall pick, that just completely changes the outlook of your franchise. And they drafted Cade Cunningham, who was the consensus #1 pick and who is now the centerpiece of their franchise and who I'll talk about a bit more later. They also drafted Isaiah Livers and Luka Garza in the second round. So I would say they had a good draft. Definitely didn't mess up the first overall pick. This offseason, they signed Kelly Olynyk to a 3-year, $37 million deal, and they lost Mason Plumlee and Wayne Ellington. And then they also traded Sekou Doumbouya and Jahlil Okafor for DeAndre Jordan, who they bought out, and 4 second-round picks. So a pretty busy offseason. They've had a lot of roster turnover. Killian Hayes, their first-round pick last year, is actually the longest tenured player on the roster. So a lot of new players playing together and a lot of turnover, which could be good. They certainly need to rebuild their roster, and I think they have pretty effectively. They have some interesting young guys between Cade and some of the rookies last year. So if I do a projected starting lineup, at point guard, Killian Hayes. In his rookie year, he wasn't good. He averaged 7 points, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists. Though, to be fair, he did struggle with injuries and is still very, very young. So we'll see if he can improve this year. His efficiency was also terrible last year. But there is still lots of room to grow, I think. One of the most important things is defense. If you can become a solid, an above average defender, he's certainly big enough. He's 6'5", which is good for a guard. I think he is a smart player, so I think that could be huge. And then also maybe adjusting his game to play off ball a little bit more. The 3-point shot has to start going in. The playmaking I think is already decent, but even that could improve. And just being overall more efficient and getting used to the NBA. I think they'll still keep the faith in him for a bit longer. You shouldn't give up on the 7th overall pick, who's only played his rookie year, but he has to start producing, I'd say, if he wants to keep a spot in the starting lineup and prove that him and Cade is the backcourt of the future. At the shooting guard position, Kade Cunningham, the #1 overall pick. He is really good. He is a point guard, but I have him at shooting guard. I think, him and Killian can share the ball handling duties. Cade can play off ball because he's a good shooter. He's 6'7", so he has good size. He can play in the pick and roll. He's a good pick and roll ball handler. Can see all the passes. Has a super high IQ and feel for the game. Is a good shot creator too, and can hit clutch shots. He's a clutch player. He can also create shots, and he's a good passer. He's a good playmaker. Defensively, I don't think he's a great defender right now, but he is 6'7", so he has good size. And then off ball, he can also play off ball. He's a good shooter and is a willing mover off ball. So I think Cade's going to be really good. If I predict a stat line, I think maybe rookie year, 16 points, maybe 5 or 6 assists, 5 rebounds, something like that. I think he's definitely a contender for rookie of the year, as the first overall pick almost always is. And I think he's who they're building around, and I think he's a good player to build around because he just seems like a player who's going to be good. Certainly isn't going to be a bust because he can play in so many different ways, and he's very versatile, and he can play in the pick and roll and do all the things you want from a modern NBA guard. At small forward, Saddiq Bey was a rookie last year and played really well. He averaged 12 points per game and shot 38% from 3, and he's a great shooter. He also has good size and is a solid defender. I think he fits well with Cade. I think he'd fit well with almost any team because, you can always use a good 3-and-D player. I think there might even be more potential. A lot of his threes were catch and shoot, but maybe some off the dribble or off-screen threes. I think that could be interesting. But I think even if he doesn't ever take another step and he's just a 3-and-D guy, which could be a possibility, I think he's a great long-term fit alongside Cade. And yeah, I think his three-point shot will be useful for their spacing, and so will his defense if they want to be a solid defensive team. At power forward, Jeremy Grant, he averaged 22 points a game last year and really showed that he can be a scorer. The efficiency wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, he can play in the pick and roll a little bit. He can shoot the mid-range. He can shoot from three. He can finish around the rim. Playmaking, he can do a little bit of it. He's not a great playmaker, but he can make like the simple reads and the solid plays. And now with Cade, I think there'll be a bit less pressure, and he can go and be a second option where maybe it's a bit more off ball, maybe it's focusing on defense a bit more, because he has shown that he can be a good 3-and-D role player. But I don't think he'll completely go back to that. I think there'll still be many possessions where he is the number one option, creating for himself, maybe creating for others a little bit. And I think, he's a good second option, and him and Cade will take the pressure off each other. And then at center, Isaiah Stewart was their other rookie last year. He averaged 8 points and 7 rebounds. And he's a bit of an undersized big, but he plays super hard. He's a good shot blocker and a good defender. Offensively, he can finish around the rim efficiently and is a good roller, that sort of thing. But he's also showed a little bit of a jumper. He took about 1 3-pointer a game. Efficiency wasn't great, about 33%, but maybe that is something in his development where he's not just your classic protect the rim, run the floor big, but he's also able to space the floor and pop out for three. But I think his work ethic and his hustle and his defense will keep him on the floor, and I think he's also a good fit with this Detroit team. Off the bench, Corey Joseph averaged 12 points and 5.5 assists last year. He's a good solid backup point guard, can shoot it a little bit, is a good passer, a good playmaker. He'll be able to, take the pressure off Killian Hayes if he's not having a good night. He'll be able to run the second unit. There's a lot of solid backup point guards in the NBA, and Corey Joseph is one of them. Hamidou Diallo, he averaged 11 points and 5 rebounds last year. He is super athletic. I'll be interested to see if there's maybe a little Showtime Pistons, a few more lobs this year with Cade coming in, who's a good passer. But Diallo is really athletic. He can provide rim pressure and slash to the rim. He's also a solid defender. He does have his flaws. He's not a good shooter, that sort of thing. But yeah, could be a decent bench piece. Josh Jackson averaged 13 points and 4 rebounds. He's pretty inconsistent. I mean, he had a few games last year where he turns into a great 3-point shooter, and he's attacking the rim, and he's solid defensively. And then sometimes the 3-pointer isn't falling, and he's not able to get to the rim. So yeah, we'll see. He was obviously the 4th overall pick in 2017, but we'll see if he continues his development and becomes a little bit more consistent, or just stays a bench player for the Pistons. And then Kelly Olynyk, who they signed, averaged 13.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists last year. Played really well with the Rockets. I think he'll take most of the backup front court minutes. He might also start, I'm not sure, but he can space the floor. He can shoot the 3. He can go off the dribble a little bit. Can post up a little bit. Defensively, he's not great, but I think he does provide some offense for the Pistons off the bench, which might be something they need. Gives them some lineup versatility too. He could play with Isaiah Stewart if they want to go a bit bigger, or with Jeremy Grant if they want to go 5 out and space the floor. So yeah, I think overall this Pistons team has a bright future. I like Cade Cunningham. I like Saddiq Bey. This year they could be decent and push for a play-in spot, but they also lack a lot of experience. They have a lot of young guys, and this is pretty much like all the guys are new to playing with each other, so there might not be as much chemistry as other teams. The East is also better this year, so if I had to predict, I wouldn't be shocked if they snuck into the play-in, but I'm going to predict like the 13, maybe even the 14 seed, just because they're new playing together, and because the East, they'd be competing against teams like the Wizards, the Pacers, the Hornets, who just have more chemistry and probably a little bit more talent at this time. So I think the Pistons have a bright future, and they could sneak into a decent spot. But I think this year will just be everyone getting to grips with each other and learning how to play with each other. But anyways, thanks for watching this video, guys. Leave a like, subscribe to this channel for more NBA content, and I'll see you guys next time.